So today we're going to talk a little bit about functions. So let's just say we wanted to do, just say a quick addition thing here. So we'll just say console, just say document dot write, and we'll say 3 plus 4. Okay, and now 3 plus 4, you'll see it's 7, right? So another way we can do this is we can create a function, right? So in the function, we'll call the function called sum, right? And then we can grab this here, toss it inside of the function, and then all you need to do is call sum. And you call sum by just typing in the name of the function with parentheses, and you get 7. Okay, so that's kind of cool. However, if you notice here, I actually want sum to work for anything, for any addition. So I want to make sure, I want to pass whatever numbers I want, and I want to then add those up, right? So to do that, we have to create a couple variables. So we'll say call it number 1, and then comma, and then call it number 2, right? And you can call those whatever you want. And I will then make this one number 1 and this one number 2. And then in the sum, you can say something like, 3 and 5. And you'll see 8 shows up there. If I change that to 9, and 14 shows up there. Okay, that's pretty cool. The other thing we can do too is, if you notice here, we could use, if we take out that, right, and we just put a bunch of things, say, right, if you use arguments dot length, you'll notice that 6 comes up. So if you typically want to always have arguments and arguments that are readable and make sense. However, there are scenarios sometimes where you might have dynamic arguments and you don't really know how many things are going to be passed in there. So in that scenario, you could keep it empty, and then what you'd be able to do is do something like for var I equals 0, I less than arguments dot length plus, right? And then here, and we can say arguments I, right, that's actually, okay, so that's writing all of my things here. So what I actually want to do is I want to say, here I'll say var sum equals 0. Actually, you know what, I'm going to go var sum is going to be inside of my function, right? And we'll talk about why I said, actually, let me write some value so it isn't confusing. So some value is that, and then I will then add some value plus equals argument I, and let's see if that works. Some value 1, And for some reason that's not working. Oh, it's not working because I don't have document dot write some value. Okay, 32. So basically what I just did was I created a function, right? I have a dynamic set of arguments and I'm looping through them and I'm just adding it to itself. And every time I call some value, so every time I call this function sum, it's going to go into this block. It's going to start some value at 0. It's going to loop it all. It's going to add to itself whatever argument it's in for that loop. And it's just going to add and add and add. And then like if I wanted to do something like, actually, you know what? One thing we can do here is we can say, there's another thing to add here called return, right? And return would be, let's just take out some value and add that there, right? And now here we could document.write from outside. Right, 32. Okay, so what return does is it actually makes this function sort of like a value, right? So I can say, actually, you know what, I'll say var my average, right, equals, move this, add that there, put my average here, right, and then maybe we'll just divide this by 6, right, and now I've got the average, right. So what we did here is before we had document.write inside of the function, right? Now we want to call this and we want to use this somewhere else, the value somewhere else, right? And that's what we did over here. So I'm sorry, over here, right? So sum is being called, it's being passed all these arguments. These arguments are getting collected, and then you're getting returned a value. So let's do a more simple version of this. So function, hello, right? I'm going to say return world, right? And that's all we're going to do. And now here, we'll say console.log, oops, hello, and then the parentheses. And that's not working for some reason. Function hello return, oh, because it's a console. There it is. So world's there. So actually make this document.write. Okay. Now you see world. Okay. So that's how the return works, right? And then, you know, like I said, you can add something else here. You can say, if I said var, var x equals, you know, world, then you can return x and you'll get the same thing, world. Okay, so that's what return is for. The next thing about functions, the next way you might see functions working, we'll keep this here, is you can use what's called an anonymous function or self. So go to this function, right? So what this is what's going on here is this function has no name, right? And I can say let's clear that. I'm going to copy this and we'll say document.write. Hello world, and you'll see that gets called, right? And in the difference between that and the one up here is now this one over here, I need to actually call. If you want to comment that out, this one actually needs to get called hello world, right? So this one's anonymous. This one has a name, okay? The other way you can do this is you can say var my function equals function, right? And here you can basically do the same thing. Just grab this here and just paste it there, right? And now you'll notice that let's move this anonymous one out of this to the bottom. Actually, move this out of the top. All right. This one says function hello, right? This one here, I created a variable called my function, right? And we're going to, and that's going to have basically do the same exact thing. And that now I can go to my function and actually call my function there. We'll say 2. This is hello 1. Right? Now it says hello 2. Right? If I said hello, it would be hello 1. Okay. Now, the next way that you might see functions, and all of these, there's a reason why you would use functions in these different ways, is within an object. So we're going to say var, there's some like my object equals, right? And we have an object, right? And if you remember, an object could have, say, array. I don't do that. We'll just say list, right? And that list is going to be an array 1, 2, 3, right? We could have via my string, right? And this is, something. Be my number, right? And this could be 1, 2, 3. It could also be my function, right? And in here, you'll have a function being called, right? So my function, and you can just we'll grab this all over here, we'll just toss it there, right? And we'll just put 3. In order to call this function, right, we need to say my object dot my function, and then you get hello 3, right? So you'd call this just like you would if you wanted to get my object, my string, to get something. So if you want to call the function inside of there, then you would have to say my object dot my function, and you have to remember to have these quotes here, right? And the same thing, like you can pass 3, and this would be like num. Take that out there, plus num. See, and now you have 3, right? If I made this 5, then it'll be 5, and I'm passing a value over here. Okay, so we did objects, we did all these various types of ways of writing your code